Ezekiel's vision, Israel's restoration. The Valley of Dry Bones in Ezekiel's prophecy is not just a haunting image of death and despair, but also a profound symbol of Israel's spiritual and physical journey throughout history. The valley, scattered with dry bones, represents a period of great desolation and hopelessness for Israel, symbolizing the nation's destruction, exile, and abandonment. These bones, representing the people of Israel, tell the story of a nation torn apart, scattered to the four corners of the earth, and left seemingly without a future. In Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 2, the prophet describes how God led him through this valley. He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. The bones in the valley signify that Israel was not only in a state of exile, but also spiritually dead, cut off from its heritage, God, and the land of promise. Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 11, further highlights the despair of Israel's state when God's people declare, "Our bones are dried up and our hope is gone. We are cut off." For centuries, the Jewish people lived in a state of dispersion. The 10 northern tribes were taken away by the Assyrians, and the southern kingdom of Judah was exiled to Babylon. For over 2,000 years, the people of Israel were spread across the globe, enduring persecution, being stripped of their land, their temple, and their national identity. This exile and wandering made them like dry bones, disconnected and hopeless. But the vision doesn't end in hopelessness. In Ezekiel chapter 37, verses 4-5, God commands Ezekiel to prophesy to the bones and declare, "This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life." The first part of the prophecy was the physical return of Israel to the land, a return that began in 1948 with the establishment of the State of Israel. In a world where nations typically fall and are never resurrected, Israel's return to its land, after being scattered for millennia, seemed impossible. But it was written in the prophecy, and it came true. The second stage, the political restoration, also began soon after, as Israel not only survived its initial years but thrived. The once desolate land blossomed, the dry bones of a scattered people had been gathered, and Israel's political revival became one of the most miraculous occurrences in modern history. Yet the spiritual restoration still awaits. While Israel is physically restored and politically revived, it is not yet spiritually awakened. The third stage of this prophecy, the outpouring of God's Spirit upon Israel, remains to be fulfilled. This final stage will see the hearts of the Jewish people turn to Jesus Christ, recognizing him as the Messiah and experiencing a national spiritual awakening. The breath of God, spiritual awakening. The breath of God, or Ruach in Hebrew, symbolizes the Holy Spirit. In Ezekiel 37, 9-10, God commands Ezekiel to prophesy to the breath, calling on the wind to come and breathe life into the bodies that have been restored but are still lifeless. Ezekiel, in obedience, speaks to the breath. "Come, breath from the four winds, and breathe into these slain, that they may live." As Ezekiel speaks, the bodies come to life, filling the valley with a mighty army of living people. This final act signifies the spiritual revival of Israel, a nation that, while restored physically and politically, still lacks the breath of God, the Holy Spirit. The absence of this final stage of spiritual restoration underscores the current situation in Israel. While the physical land of Israel is thriving, much of the nation still rejects Jesus Christ as the Messiah, and thus the spiritual awakening has not yet occurred. This spiritual transformation is crucial. Without this breath of God, Israel cannot fulfill its true purpose as a light to the nations. Zechariah 12:10 foretells this moment, where God will pour out his Spirit on the people of Israel. "And I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and supplication. They will look on me, the one they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child." The day will come when Israel's eyes will be opened to the truth of Jesus Christ. And this moment will be the final stage of restoration. It will be a moment of profound spiritual revival, not just for Israel, but for the entire world, as the people of Israel come to know their true Messiah. When will this happen? The spiritual restoration of Israel is the final piece of Ezekiel's prophecy. The events leading up to it seem to be unfolding before our eyes. We can see the political and territorial return of Israel, but the spiritual restoration has not yet come to fruition. The key question remains, when will Israel breathe again? We see signs pointing to the approaching fulfillment of this prophecy in the current geopolitical landscape. Israel is surrounded by enemies, just as Ezekiel 38:16 predicted. You will advance against my people Israel like a cloud that covers the land. In the days to come, Gog, I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me when I am proved holy through you before their eyes. This coalition of nations, led by Gog, commonly believed to represent Russia and align with Iran, is already forming. The nations mentioned in Ezekiel 38, Persia, Iran, Cush, Sudan, Put, Libya, and Gomer, Turkey, are all involved in the current geopolitical dynamics in the Middle East. The ultimate showdown that Ezekiel describes is not merely a geopolitical event, it is a divine appointment. God himself will intervene in a way that will make his holiness known to the entire world. Ezekiel 38:21-23 provides a detailed picture of what will happen when this coalition attacks. I will summon a sword against Gog on all my mountains, declares the sovereign Lord. Every man's sword will be against his brother. I will execute judgment on him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him and on his troops, and on the many nations with him. God will not allow Israel to fight this battle on its own. In this supernatural intervention, God will destroy the invading forces, bringing them to judgment. This moment will serve as the final act of divine justice, proving to the world that God is indeed the sovereign ruler. A final warning, Israel as God's prophetic clock. Israel's return to the land in 1948 marked the beginning of the fulfillment of this prophecy. The establishment of the State of Israel, after 2,000 years of exile, was an event unlike anything the world had ever seen. In Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 14, God's promise of restoration is made clear. I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have done it, declares the Lord. But this spiritual awakening has yet to take place. While Israel is back in its land, the spiritual rebirth of the nation still awaits. As we continue to watch Israel's role in world events, we must understand that this nation is God's prophetic clock. Every event, every war, and every alliance points to the final fulfillment of Ezekiel's prophecy. As Zechariah chapter 12 verse 3 declares, on that day when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations. All who try to move it will injure themselves. Israel's role on the world stage is not an accident. It is a divine sign of what is to come. As nations align against it, we are witnessing prophecy unfold before our eyes. The final battle, Israel's last war. Just after the physical restoration of Israel, Ezekiel sees a terrifying vision of the nations coming against Israel in the final battle of the last days. The prophetic leader Gog from the land of Magog leads a coalition of nations, Russia, Iran, Turkey, Sudan, Libya, to attack Israel. This battle will not be fought with human weapons alone. It will be a divine judgment. Ezekiel chapter 38 verses 18-22 describes the supernatural devastation that will occur. On that day when Gog attacks the land of Israel, declares the sovereign Lord, my wrath will be aroused. I will unleash a great earthquake in the land of Israel. The fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the beasts of the field, every creature that moves along the ground, and all the people on the face of the earth will tremble at my presence. The mountains will be overturned, the cliffs will crumble, and every wall will fall to the ground. I will summon a sword against Gog on all my mountains, declares the sovereign Lord. Every man's sword will be against his brother. This is the final act of divine intervention. Israel will not have to defend itself. God himself will act. Conclusion, the final countdown. As we look at Israel today, we can see that the prophetic vision of Ezekiel is unfolding right before our eyes. Israel has returned to its land, and the stage is set for the final fulfillment of prophecy. But the spiritual awakening of Israel still awaits. The breath of God will one day pour out on the nation, and Israel will be spiritually reborn. This is the final miracle. the outpouring of God's Spirit on the people of Israel. And when this happens, it will not only change Israel, but the entire world. As we wait for this moment, we must recognize that Israel's destiny is intricately tied to God's ultimate plan for humanity. Every war, every threat, and every prophetic fulfillment points toward the coming return of the Messiah. Israel is more than just a country. It is God's prophetic clock, and the final countdown has begun.